It's like, I'm so glad Instagram wasn't around when I started bodybuilding, because I never would have done a gaining phase, because it's like people, like, you can't get people to take you serious if you don't have abs.
What about your opinions on bulking and cutting for weight loss, or for people looking to add muscle? What kind of impact can it have? Like, should we increase calories for 3 months, get bigger, put on some more muscle, then cut in the end? What is the overall end result going to be? Is it more optimal to do that? Less optimal? Around equal? What do you think?
Well, there's not a whole lot of data on this, so this is going to be a lot of opinion. And you may actually have a different opinion than I do. So first thing is, can you body recomposition? The answer is yes. And we do see it in some studies. You can gain muscle and you can lose fat. Yes, you can. But to do that over a long period of time consistently and to an appreciable degree is very, very difficult unless you fall into one of three basic categories, I'd say. One, you're either new to lifting or you're coming back from a long layoff. And so the impetus for you to build lean tissue, your body is going to actually have to rob, like, let's say you're eating at maintenance. Your body is actually going to start robbing calories from adipose to actually build lean tissue. So robbing Peter to pay Paul, essentially. So there's one. If you're very overweight or obese, you have such a large reservoir of triglyceride and ATP to divert to muscle building, and you can't turn fat into muscle. That's not how it works. But you can use the stored energy from fat in order to facilitate the construction of new lean tissue. So that's part of it. So that's the second group. And then anabolic steroids, of course. So, or any combination of those three. So it's kind of four scenarios. And can you have somebody who's been lifting for, 10 years and they get on a new program, they up their volume, they change a few things, optimize a few more things, and they see some recomposition? You can, but it's probably going to be short term, and it's probably going to be a relatively small amount of tissue. What I will tell people is, when I started lifting weights, I was 140 pounds. I didn't want to gain body fat and I wanted to gain muscle. I wasn't going to recomp my way to 205 pounds at the same body fat. It's just, you've got it. You don't have to, but I believe it's important to facilitate maximal muscle mass, that you spend some prolonged periods in a surplus for a few different reasons. One, especially it's probably less important when you first start lifting, again, because the signal for growth is so powerful. But as you get further and further into it, that signal for growth begins to dampen, and you don't have the same impetus for growth. And you probably need more in terms of setting your body up, for lack of a better term, to be able to facilitate this muscle growth. And I mean, this is why you see, like, the top natural bodybuilders who actually make improvements, they take, 2, 3, 4 year off seasons, because it just takes so long to grow muscle mass. And then the other thing is like, what body fat are we talking about recompositioning at? It's a lot easier to recomposition to 20% body fat than 5%. At 5%, I'm sorry, you're not recompositioning, because you're so far below your body fat set point that any extra calories are just going to get sucked up by adipose tissue over lean tissue. So that's another portion of it. But I would say that, like, hey, if you're uncomfortable with your body fat, you could probably try to do a little bit of recomposition. To me, I just have seen so many people run in circles with that. If you're going to recomposition and do it well, you have to be really dialed in. So I tend to say, let's stop trying to chase two rabbits. Let's focus on one at a time. If you're uncomfortable with your body fat, let's get you to a more comfortable body fat. And then let's do a very, and this is the other thing. Gaining is slow. Like, gaining muscle is slow, and people get impatient. So what do? And Greg, I'm sure you've seen this. They'll try to do 100 calorie surplus, and then things aren't really happening. They don't really see any differences. And maybe they actually look a little fluffier. They can't really tell the difference. And so then they go, fuck it, 1,000 calorie surplus. I'm just eating burgers and shakes and whatever. I'm bulking, bro. And then they get fat or fatter, and they say, well, bulking doesn't work. And it's like, no, the way you were bulking didn't work.
So the problem with bulking is people think that they actually have to bulk when they're already overweight. They're already at 25%. They're already fat, essentially, and they think that they need to bulk. And the people who do need to bulk, they're actually very lean. As you said, 5% body fat, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. These people might actually need more body fat, need more calories. But if you already have an abundance of calories, you have a lot of fat, your body can use that fat for energy to build muscle. And newer lifters who are 20 years old, they're just getting into the gym, they're skinny fat, I need to bulk. But yet they're already 20 pounds overweight, and then they start forcing in a bunch of calories. They gain some weight. They think, oh, it worked. I'm up 20 pounds. Problem is, it was all fat and water. A couple pounds of muscle, yes. Then they have to diet. And what's going to happen when they diet? They're going to lose some of that muscle. Their metabolism is going to slower. And then when they lose that weight, they're going to say, oh, I lost this. I'm flat now. And then they're going to bulk again. And the cycle goes back and forth, with the added problem being, they've now seen themselves in the mirror, not liking how they look because they put on 20 pounds of fat and they have to cut. So what can you say to people that want to bulk, and they're not sure if they should? Is there a certain body fat percentage that, yeah, okay, for you that makes sense, but for you that doesn't make sense? Because there's no one answer. It's not like, I preach main gaining, but it's not for everyone. So what people should be trying to bulk, what people should be trying to cut, and what people should be trying to main gain?
So if your body fat set point is, say, 8% body fat, let's say you're relatively lean body fat set point, you probably, if you're trying to stay at 5%, it's going to be very difficult and gain, because when you're below that body fat set point, the hormonal milieu and the signals to your body are, our adipose tissue is deficit. And especially if you've already built a decent amount of muscle mass, what is the impetus for the body to build more lean tissue when body fat is in a deficit, right? But if you're a 140 pound skinny kid who wants to build some muscle and you're already pretty lean, it probably would do well for you to be in a surplus for a while. Now, again, surplus does not mean you got to get sloppy. And I think everybody who's ever done bodybuilding has had a dreamer bulk at some point or another. I have, certainly, where it's like, well, I don't care about body fat. I'm just going to get as big as possible. And exactly what you said, Greg, happens is, well, now you have to spend so much time taking off that excess body fat that you end up losing quite a bit of the lean body mass that you built.
So I think that just for people to get a take home, if you're going to bulk slower than last time, it's not about gaining a pound a week here. That's 50 pounds a year. It's slow. You gained a quarter pound a week. And if you're already fat, your body can use fat from your body to build muscle. If you're new to the gym, probably easier. If you're obese, probably easy. If you're on PDs, probably easy. If you've been training for a long time and you're lean, you're maybe potentially underweight, you're struggling, and you have very high hunger levels, your hormones, ghrelins coming for you, punching you in the face saying eat, you probably need to eat more. So you really need to look at your own individual basis to say, do I have enough energy to train hard? Do I feel good in the gym? Am I sleeping well? Do I have proper hormonal balance? If you do, you're probably eating enough. If you're obese, you probably shouldn't try to be more obese. And if you try to eat big to get big, you're going to be big and fat. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I agree. And I think part of this gets driven too, because I'm so glad Instagram wasn't around when I started bodybuilding, because I never would have done a gaining phase, because it's people you can't get people to take you serious if you don't have abs, And so I moved up a weight class in powerlifting back in 2018 and 2019 when I was coming back from an injury. I just didn't want to have to worry about cutting down to a class when I was trying to rehab an injury. And, I was about 230, which, I'm still leaner than the vast majority of people, but I'm not lean for what the fitness industry considers lean, And so, I had people on my YouTube being like, you have man boobs, you're obese, you're a disgusting sugar addict, all this kind of stuff. I got there over the course of a year. I gained 30 pounds over it was the course of almost 2 years. And I'm telling people, I'm like, you realize that this was on purpose, right? This wasn't like I just forgot how to diet. This was purposeful overfeeding. But yeah, again, it's so funny how like that was so hard for me to do because honestly, I sold less stuff during that time because I had more body fat. And then when I cut down, it was amazing to watch like my sales go back up. It was so funny how that goes. But I understand now why people are really, back in the early 2000s, people didn't really dudes especially didn't wring their hands so much over gaining some body fat. It was kind of like, okay, well, this is the off season. This is what we do. Like not that you have to get sloppy, but there just wasn't this worry about gaining a couple of pounds of body fat. But now for people on Instagram who like their whole sales model is, hey, I've got to be shredded all the time. It's hard to make progress when you're shredded all the time.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much pressure, social pressure to look a certain way. I mean, myself, I'm at about 9% body fat. I'll throw show a throwback where I'm 15%. Wow, you're so fat. Or even a throwback where I'm on steroids and I have a puffier face from the PDs. Wow, you're fat. And I'm like, I'm literally on contest day 5%. And you're and it's like, imagine the people that are looking at, watching my videos, reading the comments and saying, this guy's fat. There's no doubt why people get body dysmorphia these days.
Sure.
What do you think is a healthy percent body fat, men and women? Just so that people know, like what is, for general purposes, healthy, like 9%. No one needs to be single digit body fat for health. So what would be a general recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the research data, it's like, for men, 15% is probably pretty fine. You're getting most of the health benefits by being there. And, and again, it also depends on the, I know you did a kind of like I think a breakdown of the body fat percentage that I said I was on the Natty or Not video, because I think I had said like 10%. But, I always disclose that, hey, that was with calipers and they probably register low. Like they're probably 3-4% low, So in reality, I was probably close to 14-15%, in the pictures that were being discussed. And that's probably a healthy body fat. And to be honest, like my most comfortable, like where I'm at now, 205, 207, I can maintain that pretty easy. I do have to do some like, to kind of stay on my diet and make sure I'm getting enough energy expenditure throughout the day. But like what's really comfortable for me is like 210, 215. Like that is effortlessly lean, or that's like, anywhere from 12 to 15% body fat. I can do that effortlessly. And then to get above that requires work as well. But yeah, I think for the vast majority of men, 15%. For women, it's 20 to 25. And, like that looks like an average person. Unfortunately, when you're muscular, because you have muscle under fat, like you tend to look even more bloated than you would if you were just a normal person with, 15% body fat. But those are fine. You're getting most of the health benefits there, especially if you're exercising regularly. People, it's so funny, Greg, like people used to wring their hands about like, oh, I'm worried about my, post-workout carbohydrate consumption giving me type 2 diabetes. And I'm like, you're literally worrying about nothing.
Yeah, and just full disclosure, for me being at 9%, this is not easy. This is pretty close to the limit of what I can maintain. And I can only do this because A, I'm doing a shit ton of cardio, I'm racing bicycles. B, really good genetics. C, I'm eating low-calorie dense foods from my cookbook that allow me to be full, so it prevents me from being hungry. If I just ate like my girlfriend eating pizza and stuff, there's no way I'm this lean. I'd be 15-20%. Not that that's unhealthy, but it would be hard. And so if it's hard for me to do this with great genetics and the proper knowledge and everything, imagine how hard it is for the average person. So these people trying to gain at single digit body fat are saying, oh, Greg, you're so wrong. I tried to build muscle, and they'll show a picture and I'm like, if you tried to build muscle at 7% body fat and you're natural, why do you think it didn't work? Yeah. You just have to have realistic expectations.
That's a great point. Like when I cut down last year for a photo shoot, I was about 201, 202 pounds, like 200 pounds, somewhere around there. And that was actually like, I was able to get there relatively easy. Like that wasn't it to maintain that would have required some work, but to get there was not that difficult for me. In fact, my wife, she always was like, oh, well, wait till you cut, cause she was dieting for shows most of the time we were together originally. So well, wait till you have to cut down. So then I did my cut and she was like, it's disgusting how easy this is for you. And, I think I just have had a lot of practice with it, but I got to that really lean body fat, but I know where the precipice is. And it's not like, and this, to go from 15% body fat to like 7% for me, easy. like not difficult. I mean, it does require some work, but it's to go from like 7 to 4 or 5 is a monumental effort, 10 times more difficult, and is what I would consider soul sucking. So that's the other thing I'll tell people sometimes, like, hey, you may think you want to be shredded, but like, what? Just be happy with being lean. Be happy with being lean. Because sometimes when you push yourself to shredded, you can't maintain it. And guess what the blowback is? The blowback is you go back to 10 or 12% or even more than that. And actually the research shows that. There's actually research papers that show people who are already lean who attempt to diet tend to rebound to a greater body fat than they were before they even started. So I'll tell people, like, don't let the enemy of great be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely great point. I always tell people, rather than trying to get your dream physique, try to get halfway there, because then at least you have a shot at maintaining it. What's the point of getting down to that 5% body fat, which is going to be, as you said, soul sucking? It's a nightmare, a living nightmare trying to get that shredded, when you can maintain something reasonable. Like for me, it's 9%. Maybe for you, it's 15 or 20 or whatever that is. But rather than trying to get shredded like you think, you know, your Gymshark models are looking like this and you want to look like, pick something halfway there you can maintain, and then you won't rebound, and then just main gain where you're comfortable and healthy. Don't try to main gain from 5%. Get to what's normal that you can sustain and progress from there for the rest of your life. That is my overall message. If you want to bulk and cut, that's fine. And people will argue, well, Greg, the Mr. Olympia, they're all bulking and cutting. I'm like, yeah, Chris Bumstead's 4.5% body fat on stage. You think he's going to main gain at 4.5%? He's bulking. His bulking is to 12%. Yeah. You're already 22%. So just because Chris bulked from 4 doesn't mean you should bulk from 24.
Yeah, and I know everybody has probably heard this at one time or another, but maybe they don't believe it. But the images you see of people on social media, and I mean, I'm guilty of this as well. Of course, I want to look good in images and put up, you know, my photo shoot pictures and those sorts of things. But that's not how I look year round. That's not reasonable for me to be that way year round. And like for dudes, like, what are you doing this for? Right? Like, what are you doing this for? Who are you trying to impress? Right? Because if it's women, I got news for you. They don't really, like, past a certain point, they just don't care. And they probably care more about a lot of other stuff than just your physique. In fact, I know a lot of women who don't want to be with a guy who's really shredded because they're worried he's too into himself, you know? And your dick's not going to work anyway when you're that lean, so good luck. You know what I mean? Like, it's you have absolutely zero libido when you're that lean. So it's just one of those things that I find funny, especially when guys get into it for trying to get girls.
Absolutely. When you're at your leanest, 5% body fat, that's when you want sex the least. I have zero sex drive, especially when I was natural. Oh my goodness. I would go a month, 6 weeks, zero interest. I could watch, I could literally had a porn set in front of me and I have no interest, just nothing. Why do I care? I'm not eating enough. So you need to be at that kind of that midpoint, like not as lean as you might want to be, but that's going to be lean enough for most people. You try to get leaner. Who are you impressing? As you said, are you trying to impress men? Same with building muscle. Most women don't care if you're 250 pounds shredded. It's just like, it's too much. Just try to have an athletic look. So much better.